Over 7 million different animals inhabit our planet.
This week, I promise you, it's don't stop the podcast. Listen this through because we have an incredible interview on Thursday.
What can they teach us?
I hadn't really put two and two together until I started reading more about the Perdido Beach Key Mouse and how they were important in dunes. But coming from Southwest Michigan, growing up,
Many species are in crisis and need your help. Join the movement at allcreaturespod.com.
Welcome to the All Creatures Podcast. This is Chris.
and I'm Angie.
Angie, we said we wouldn't do this again, but I think today will be fine. You know, doing kind of a 2-for-1 in an episode.
Well, yes. Well, we'll give it a try and we'll let the audience decide.
Right. Because we did the vaquita porpoise and the river dolphins together, which we both decided it was a little too much to cover two species. But today we are doing the Key Largo Cotton Mouse and the Perdido Key Beach Mouse. So, little guys for a big podcast, I guess.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing is in some ways, there wasn't a ton of research out there, a lot of data. So some general facts that we'll be able to share with you today. And that's where we thought we'd bump it up with a couple different species, both from my native region of Florida or my new, I'm not native Floridian, but my new habitat, my new abode.
Yes. You're an invasive species too. And that's kind of a theme this week.
Yes.
Right? So.
Yes. Well, and I've been wanting to do the Perdido Beach Key Mouse for a while as just my local zoo, the Santa Fe College Teaching Zoo here, has been a big promoter of the species and part of their survival in the wild because they are really endangered. And so I'm excited to share their story. But it is a small story because we don't know a ton about them. And that's where Chris is going to chime in with other species too that are experiencing some issues in Florida because of the regions that they live in are pretty small niches. Right.
So the Key Largo Cotton Mouse. I always want to say cotton mouth, but it's cotton mouse.
You probably will say it once a day, but hopefully I'll be able to catch it.
And then the Perdido Key Beach Mouse, both are in Florida, but they're at the opposite end of the state. And we'll talk about where they live here in a minute. But yeah, they're both endangered. This week, I promise you, it's don't stop the podcast. Listen this through because we have an incredible interview on Thursday. It's called the $1 Million Mouse Project. It's a big project here in New Zealand. I have a great interview with Theo Van Noort, who traveled to one of the remote places in the subantarctic, and he was dealing with some mice. So it's a cool story that I'm going to kind of at the end of today's podcast kind of give you some insider information on this $1 Million Mouse Project. So,
spoiler alerts. We love those.
Yeah. It was a cool interview. It's just his whole story about that travel down there. Like very few people have stepped foot on that island and he's one of them. So
it's called the $1 Million Mouse Project.
Yes. And I'll explain at the end of the podcast of what that is, what it is. So Angie, just getting right into these mice, both these mice are subspecies, right?
Correct.
The Key Largo mouse is a subspecies of the cotton mouse. And it's also called the cotton deer mouse. Mm-hmm. And the Perdido Key Mouse is a subspecies of
the old field mouse.
Right. Or they call them beach mouse too, right? So,
yeah, I think beach mouse is probably the easier way to remember it.
Yeah. And they're super cute. Like those pictures of them, like I looked them up. Oh my God.
Nikes. I don't know about your guy, but my Perdido Key Beach Mouse is just adorable.
They're both cute, but the beach mouse is a little tad cuter, I think. Just the eyes are a little bit bigger.
We finally agree on something.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. They're both, unlike the naked mole rat, which is just hideously ugly, but you love them.
Yeah, only a mother could love that one, for sure.
But you love them. I mean, they're cool.
You do. Well, their physiology is just incredible. Now, some of the physiology we're going to get into today about the mouse is pretty impressive. And if you stick with us too, you'll be able to learn what part of the mouse, what part of its body never stops growing.
Oh, Their nose?
Yeah.
Remember you told me last week, was it last week, your nose is still growing?
Yeah, or like old men with their ears.
Yeah, God, thanks. Thanks. What are you
No
saying?
offense. No offense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're going to cover lots of cool things. But just to give you a quick little description about my Perdido Key Beach Mouse. We all know that mice have a pointed snout and the small rounded ears and a long, slightly almost hairless tail, if you will. But the beach mouse doesn't look like pretty much any other mouse you've probably seen. It actually has blondish, grayish to creamish to blondish, light colored fur, which is not abnormal, but it has these gorgeous brown high points. So in between its two ears, almost like a blaze, like a horse would have, or a widow's peak maybe that a husky would have. It has brown. And then on its back, it also has some brown or light tannish, almost like sand, right? It makes sense to probably help camouflage. And it blends in well with like the white quartz sand of the Gulf beaches. And it's small in size too, which obviously most mice are, but it's only going to weigh about 13 to 16 grams. So just a cute little guy.
That's really tiny. Yeah. The cotton mouse, or the Key Largo Cotton Mouse, it's a little bit bigger. It's more of a medium-sized rodent. It's got obviously the large ears and eyes. It's a little bit longer, up to 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Now, my mouse is a little bit heavier at 45 grams.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or 1.5 ounces. Wow. It's still so tiny. But this one, it has that white underneath and white feet, but on top, it's kind of golden brown. And it has, they describe it as a dark hazel back and reddish brown side.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I think they're a little bit bigger on the bigger end of the scale of mice. Versus this, your beach mouse, which is a little bit smaller. Now, you said they're both from Florida,
correct,
right? These subspecies are. Yours are where?
Mine, interestingly enough, are in the Panhandle of Florida. So those of you that aren't from the United States might not be familiar with this, but Florida is a very long peninsula. And then to our west is like a strip of land that runs parallel, and that's what we call the Panhandle. So the Perdido Key Beach Mouse is going to be found in Perdido Key, Florida, which is pretty much on the most farthest western part of Florida possible to not be in Alabama. And a key in Florida is loosely just a term for an island off the mainland, but either connects through small land patches or bridges now that are man-made. So not like an island that you would traditionally think of, an island way off the coast of something. So that's why we call them keys in Florida, because they're sometimes attached, sometimes not, or we've made them be attached.
Right. Yeah, I was there last summer when I was looking at the mouse you brought up, and I was in St. John's, which is a little bit further east, not much, maybe, 10, 20 miles, or, that 40 kilometers away, or, if that. It's so beautiful. I mean,
now, Chris, yes, you bring something
so
up.
Beautiful.
Obviously, John and I have been in Florida now for about 8 or 9 years, a while. And we have not done the Panhandle, or this part of Florida. We've been all over, southern, eastern, western. But yeah, so we're gonna try to book a trip this fall because we've heard wonderful things about it. And then doing research on this Perdido Key Beach Mouse, it's just the pictures are breathtaking.
Oh yeah, the sand is just beautiful white
quartz. They describe it as white, like walking around in white diamonds. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, it's warm. I mean, it's beautiful, and it didn't seem way overcrowded. Like you go to Orlando, or I like going to Cocoa Beach. I love Cocoa Beach. Going to NASA and all that. It's go to the Panhandle, folks. It's beautiful, beautiful beaches, great place. And now it has one of these animals. Now the one I have is down in Key Largo, Florida, which is the very southeast tip. Like Angie was describing the Keys. So it is on the very southern portion, and then throughout the Keys there. That's where they're from. Now, both the Oldfield and the deer mouse, the other subspecies, is all pretty much the southeastern United States. That's where they've evolved.
Correct, yeah.
Both species from Texas, going up to Virginia, up into Tennessee, maybe parts of Illinois, Indiana. So pretty much the southeastern portion of the United States is where these two big species of mice are. And then Angie and I are talking about two of the subspecies. And just for the habitat for the Key Largo mouse, it's the woodlands, the swamps. It likes the trees. It's, it's really bushy areas.
Whereas the Perdido Key Beach Mouse is going to spend most of its time on the beach. That's why I like it so much. That's why I picked it. And near the beach grasses, near the edges of the dunes, and it'll burrow itself into the dunes at the base of a shrub or a clump of grass or something with vegetative cover.
Which is crazy. You never think of mice living on the beaches,
Well, I think that's the thing is we don't because probably where we've built
drove them
up.
off.
We drove them off. We don't see them because, well, A, they're nocturnal, and B, we scared them all away when in the parts that are built up. But that's where in some of these more remote places in Florida where they are, and we're trying to build their populations up. That's where, that's where they are. So I wish we could see more of them, but
I know. And even when I was doing my research, you look at the news and it's like the Perdido mouse is a big headache for developers. And it's like, yeah, it is because they're trying to put a house on every square inch of Florida. And there's animals that live there that we need for a healthy ecosystem.
Exactly.
And I think that kind of rolls into why I care about both the key mice, both these mice. One of the things I was reading about the Key Largo Cotton Mouse is its critical importance in seed dispersal.
Absolutely.
It's just something I never.
Oh man, you
studying animals, I never really thought about this.
You hit the nail on the head. I hadn't really put two and two together until I started reading more about the Perdido Beach Key Mouse and how they were important in dunes. But coming from Southwest Michigan, growing up on Lake Michigan, for those of you that aren't familiar with the area, which is probably most of our listeners, Lake Michigan is huge. It's like an ocean, and it's a beautiful body of water, and we have dunes, and we also have a lot of beach grass. And growing up, one of the biggest things that anybody that builds a home on the lake is concerned about, or any development, is erosion. Erosion is huge because in Michigan, we get some nasty winters and a lot of winds. And obviously the more of the bank and or dunes that erode away, houses will fall into the lake, basically, for the most part. So erosion is obviously very, very critical on beach shorelines, whether it's Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, or the Gulf of Mexico, or the Atlantic Ocean, or whatever. And so, it took me a little bit to put two and two together that these mice are herbivores or grainivores, and we'll touch about more on their nutrition, but they love seeds. And they eat a lot of them, but they also collect a lot of them. So sometimes when they collect them, obviously they don't eat them all, and therefore they enhance dune grass or beach grass populations.
Yeah, growing,
And then once those grasses grow, it's really important because they help stabilize the dunes. And Chris, you know what I found? I don't mean to giggle because it's just very interesting.
But
dune stabilization is so important
that
it actually has its own Wikipedia page.
Oh, really? That's funny.
So if you don't believe what I'm saying, folks, Wikipedia, no. But no, it just goes to show how important it is because dune grass, and for just a basic, to simplify it, is that dune grass grows roots in through the sand, into the dirt, and that helps basically hinder erosion and stabilize things for which, once again, I guess humans probably really only care because we don't want sand blowing all over the place into our yards all the time. And then, it helps keep the sand in the dunes, but then also it helps keep property lines, more stable and not damaged and or eroding.
Well, and here's another thought too, while you're talking about that, because one of the things I remember when I visited St. John's, walking around there's areas where the sea turtles come up and lay their eggs. So those beaches go away. Sea turtles have nowhere to lay eggs.
It's a whole It's a whole ecosystem. I mean, many different parts and layers to it.
Yeah. So like that web of life that, you always talk about the food web, but just that web of interconnectedness that all these animals depend on each other, that we've learned and adjusted through mass extinctions and everything. to today. So
yeah.
that's why people are fighting to save these creatures,
And for me, Chris, yeah, talking about dune grass and the erosion and the role that beach mice play in helping hinder some of that or slow some of the beach erosion down. But just in general, for me, one of the reasons I care deeply about this Perdido Key Beach Mouse is they're so darn cute. Oh,
very.
We'll put the picture up. And you know what, Chris? I'm not alone. I know obviously some people don't like mice and nobody really wants mice in their house. But I mean, think about it. What's the most famous like animal symbol in the world that's here in Orlando, Florida?
Oh, is it that Lego guy? No, just kidding.
No, you're getting warmer. Okay, try again.
I've spent many a dime there. Yes, I grew up in California next to Disneyland.
Okay,
so it was really cool to have my sons growing up next to Disney World.
Sure. I mean, we have Mickey Mouse. 1928, Walt Disney Mickey Mouse was the first mouse character to be used in children's cartoons and animation. Mm-hmm. But I mean, think about it. We have Tom and Jerry, Little Stewart, Speedy Gonzales. So for as many people that don't like them and want to scream and stand on chairs when they see them, there's probably more people that are in love with their cute little noses and their whiskers and those big ears and those tiny eyes. So for me, I really just enjoyed learning a lot about the different mice species that we're covering today. And I think with the Perdido Key Beach Mouse, another really important reason that I care is their story. And so just briefly, the Perdido Key Beach Mouse was listed as endangered and as an endangered species back in 1985. Some of us were just being born. Others of us in this podcast have been around for a while.
Yeah. Thanks, Angie. Thanks. I'm falling asleep already.
I'm just kidding.
Just kidding.
No, and so a lot of this, of course, being on the beach, was the loss of habitat due to development. And then in Florida, we're subjected to hurricanes here. And so researchers think that, in the mid 1990s, when like Hurricane Aaron and Opal just nailed the beaches there where they live, that it really just made their numbers crash. Right. And the Perdido Key Beach Mouse was less than 30 to 40 individuals after these storms.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so with help from both the state, federal agencies, and zoos, so a lot of different bodies working together, which is obviously a model that has been shown to work here in the United States, they developed breeding programs to maintain a healthy and as genetically diverse as possible population living under human care. And since then, many offspring, similar to like the black-footed ferret, have been released in Perdido Key to help the wild stock rebound from these hurricanes. And current estimates are populations potentially over 500. So they have definitely rebounded. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about several species on this podcast that were down into really low numbers, 20, 30, 40. And so interestingly enough, the Perdido Key Beach Mouse is a really good model for studying small populations and genetic bottlenecking and the issues that can come when you have a lower amount of individuals. And Chris and I often ask the question to some of the people we interview, should you put all these resources into a species that has only 40 left or 50 left or whatever it is? Right. And so, interestingly enough, we'd always ask that question, right, Chris? And
each species.
And I was actually able to find a recent paper out of the Journal of Mammalogy that went ahead and kind of studied this for the most part.
Yeah, right.
They looked at, the title of the paper is Reintroduction of Captive-Born Beach Mice, the Importance of Demographic and Genetic Monitoring. And this is a group out of University of Florida, but also Texas Tech, and of course the Florida Fish, Wildlife and Conservation Commission. And the paper was issued just last year in 2017. And basically they just studied 48 captive-born mice that were released in March 2010 and then monitored with live trapping through over 5 years. And initially they found that the number of mice had declined to only 13 individuals, and but then it definitely increased to over 206 after 5 years. And their genetic monitoring showed decrease in diversity during the first 3 months, but by year 5, the genetic diversity actually had increased. And so they think that there was maybe some mingling with some stragglers from from the wild stock before, which is great, right? And the study actually was able to demonstrate the feasibility of using captive-born beach mice to reestablish populations when the wild populations are either too small or they're not able to be translocated. So
that's another huge success story. I mean,
huge success story
that you don't hear about.
And you know, nobody's talking about this, but we're talking about it, right?
That's true. That's true.
We're gonna put them
on the map.
Make everybody listen.
Yeah, put them on the map.
Exactly. And so and you and I will get to in life cycle and reproduction, but mice are really, really cool to study for many different reasons. So in summary, the Perdido Key Beach Mouse is an amazing conservation success story. And we're going to highlight more of it in the end, what zoos are doing to help these guys survive. But that also leads to the other thing that's not ever talked about. And since we were doing a rodent, since we're doing a mouse, I'm just going to go on my quick 1 minute. I promise it'll only be 1 to 2 minute high horse or soapbox and talk a little bit about the fact that many mice and rats, or rodents in general, are used for medical testing and medical procedures, research in the research industry. And now, obviously, not the Perdido Key Beach Mouse or the mouse species you're covering, but I always said that if I was president, I would I know they have Shark Week. And they have all sorts of different days that celebrate different animals. Well, for goodness sakes, if it was up to me, I think there should be a laboratory research animal day where, especially for the rodents, where we celebrate what they have done for us and what they continue to do for us and the medical breakthroughs. A lot of people wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for the sacrifices that many, many, many rodents have made. For
millions,
that.
Probably. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, millions. I mean, a lot. Yeah. And we need them. And they're given the welfare standards have really increased as far as their care when they're living in a laboratory setting. And people are always looking for ways to humanely improve it. There's people that aren't researchers don't know this, but if you even want to look at an animal, you have to run it by animal use and care committees, or what does IACUC stand for?
Institutional animal use and
IACUC and
control or something like that.
And so, and it doesn't even matter. Yeah, if you just literally want to look at the animal, and they're making sure that the animal is taken care of in the most humane way possible, and you're not.
Yeah, there's a lot of laws.
Many laws that people don't know
United
about.
States.
Yeah, and.
So they are well taken care of, and I will say mice are the number one organism, I think, in medical research as far as looking at new drugs, new vaccines, testing things, because what we're going to get into a little bit, wait till I get to some of the evolution. It's incredible, some of the stuff that they're seeing today, but their generation interval is really quick. So they're a very effective model to use. And if it wasn't for them, diseases would be running rampant through the human populations, but we wouldn't be so many billions of people. So anyways,
there should be a national day to celebrate laboratory animals or
mice. Yeah, laboratory animals. But mice are always the first things, and then rats are a bigger one, and then dogs, cats, horses, things that we use, cows. Those are a lot less used because and then because you got to do all these trials, and if we're going to introduce a new drug, just to give some people some background or insider knowledge, you have to see what the side effects are. So they give a mouse 2 doses, 3 doses, 4 doses, 5 doses, 1,000 doses to see what happens, because you don't want to be giving this to the human population. You don't want people dropping dead. So anyway, it's a whole philosophical discussion too.
Yeah, it's probably a
but I'm
different
glad you brought that
pod
up.
for the
That's
different day,
really,
but I had to give my mice a shout out.
No, but it's good that you nodded your head to that, because that's definitely
it's probably a touchy subject for some people, for sure. But animals, rodents in particular, especially mice, have done more for humanity than most.
Yeah. For sure.
And that's why should we care? That's why these guys are living in the wild with critically low numbers because of us humans.
Yeah.
Man, we got to step up. We owe it to them. Because
it rolls into evolution. It's, and not their historical evolution. I'm going to talk about like what we're seeing today. Modern evolution it's insane. But I will just start out by saying that mice or rodents are some of the oldest mammals on Earth. And mice in general started about 70 million years ago.
Wow.
So they lived when dinosaurs, they were around when dinosaurs, T-Rex were walking around.
That size discrepancy is hard for me to visualize, though.
Yes.
I wonder if dinosaurs were, there's that, I think it's folklore that elephants are afraid of mice. I don't think there's any scientific proof.
There's none.
But I wonder if like dinosaurs are like,
Yeah, they're like food. But yeah, they survived the fifth mass extinction. So when that big
they're tough,
comet
man.
or asteroid hit the Yucatan, Now, Angie, I didn't know this. I honestly did not know this today. You would think after doing this podcast for so long, I would have known this. I didn't realize 40% of all mammals on Earth are rodents.
Isn't that incredible?
I had no idea.
Yeah, they're tough cookies, man. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
That's why like we're probably going to feel like we're doing a lot of rodents on the podcast, but in general, it's just because there are more of them.
Yeah, they're everywhere. I mean, and it's crazy how successful they are, which we'll get to. The genus is Paromyscus, and both mice, both key mice that we're covering, and these are kind of known as the New World mice. So mice in North America, and there's 53 different species. Now, just quickly to sum up some of this specific evolution here, which is really interesting, is I found a study, and I'll see if I can link it in the show notes. It's Rodent Evolution, Back to the Root.
Oh, cool.
So if anybody's really diehard, wants to read molecular biology.
If somebody can't sleep tonight.
Yes. But it was really cool because I was reading through it and pulling out some excerpts from it. So they're looking at DNA evidence, comparing the DNA of all these different rodents. And they really have it into 3 clade. So there's the mouse related, then there's the Ctenohystrica, and then there's squirrel related clade. Okay. Now, it was really, really cool. So obviously ours are in the mouse related clade, and they think these rodents began in Asia, and then about 55 million years ago is when they started spreading out.
That's when they were like,
probably
I want to go to the beach.
Well, it could be because after that mass extinction event that the total climate change that happened, right? That was dinosaurs wiped out, plus predators wiped out, dead. So now these very successful animals just proliferated.
We're like, I want to go to the beach.
Yeah, except Angie, this one is crazy. I did not know this. So it's so hard to, it's Cteno Hystrica.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah.
So Ctenohystrica is only in South America. So they spread out everywhere but South America.
Well, that's
so I'm imagining like the Panama or the Isthmus there was over water and they couldn't spread out there. So some people hypothesize, I never knew this, it's called ocean dispersal. And it kind of makes sense. Vegetation getting blown from storms and stuff through the seeds, or through, you were talking about seed dispersal. The seas or oceans pushing seeds and other plants across. They think some of these animals and even insects were like floating on these rafts of vegetation.
Oh, interesting.
From Africa to South America.
What?
Yeah, that was crazy. I did not know that hypothesis or whatever.
I've never heard that before. That's a long ride on a raft. I mean,
yes. And we talked about the hippos going to Madagascar.
Right.
Probably, I don't know if they were raft dispersal. They think they maybe swam and dropped off some islands. But yeah, so this whole different segment of animals. So you got the agouti, the porcupines, the nutria, chinchillas, a lot of things that originated in South America. And then obviously some of them pushed north into North America. Yeah. Now, our specific genus differs from Miridae, which is the largest family of rodents that has over 700 species. That's common mice. So ours is a little bit different, right? So ours are kind of unique. This is what blew me away, Ange. This is kind of the I always like to go down at least one rabbit hole each week. Kind of like, okay, let me do some drilling here.
What'd you find?
Yeah. Okay. Evolution of today's mice. Because like you said, and you gave them the nod in medical research, they have this quick generation interval. So they can adjust relatively quickly in a geological time frame. Okay. I'm not saying in a month or a year or a decade or even maybe a century, maybe 100, 200 years is long enough for them to adapt. But they're looking at some of these different mice. So in deer mice, one study I looked at, they looked at the genetics of the same species in the highlands of Colorado, so in elevations, and the lowlands of Kansas, exact same species of deer mouse. And they looked at the genes, the genetics. Only 4 genes were different between the two. So which ones do you think would be different? You have ones living in the mountains, one living on the plains.
Probably ones related to temperature, elevation.
What do you do when you are high up? What's low?
Oh, oxygen.
Besides temperature. Yeah. So you're right. Thermal regulation, which that wasn't one of the genes that they saw, but still, that's a good thot. So Dr. Angie is here in the house.
on my late Monday night.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. But it's oxygen. Yeah. It was oxygen. 4 genes related to oxygen. Now that was a cool study. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. This one, Ange, this one was incredible. So this is Dr. Jason Munchie South. He did a study at the genetic differences between same species of mice, these woodland mice in New York City.
Okay.
And then just outside New York City in the forest. So, okay. And talk about gene differences.
Yeah.
Okay. Due to natural selection.
Man, I know. I think I know the gene.
This would be crazy.
Is it like,
it
like the kind of tough, like street smart?
Yeah. They got the twang. What's the New York twang? I can't.
Yeah, a little Bronx accent.
They had tattoos on their ears.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were tough.
They drive like crazy, like bats out of HE double hockey sticks.
Yeah, we love our friends from Angie's husband's from Boston, and we love our friends in New York. So you're kind of on the right track though. The genes for recognizing disease and pathogens. So they had immune system adaptations were different.
Okay.
Because in a city,
it's dirty.
You're up against,
dirtier, different.
This one, genes that help detoxify pollutants.
There it is. Awesome.
That was fascinating. Sure. And it makes sense. This is how evolution, natural selection, all of this stuff works. You have these mice in the city, the ones that can't survive the diseases, the ones that can't survive the pollutants in the water or in the sewers or whatever smells there are in New York, the air, the food, all that stuff. Actually, New York's got really good food.
Oh, they have amazing food. Dude,
yeah.
I love Chicago deep dish, but man, New York then, I don't know.
York
I don't know what I would have to
best.
pick. I don't know what I could pick. What I'd pick.
So the mice that couldn't adapt died off, right? And the ones that had these genes that let them survive passed them on, and that's natural selection at work.
That is incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I want to see the follow up in people.
Yeah, and it just shows rodents, these mice, they survive and thrive in some very, very hostile environments. Kind of plays into the interview on Thursday that I'm going to touch upon at the end of the podcast. And
I think it also touches on the fact that like given their ability to be able to adapt, they seem historically for 70 million years that they've been able to adapt pretty well.
Right. Yeah. But
it's just now because of humans and habitat loss and just infrastructure going up at a crazy rapid rate, that they can't compete with. There's no gene
No.
that can save them, that they can adapt to deal with that, right?
Yeah. So it's like, you're like, they can adapt, and they do thrive. But when you take them out of the dunes, or you take them out of Key Largo, then you start breaking down that natural ecology or the natural environment. So do you want to build this $1 million house on the beach in the Panhandle with knowledge in 10 years those dunes are
I think
gone?
it'd probably be more like a couple million.
It's pretty expensive. Yeah. But it's like, the
just
dunes
$1 million
will be
for the
gone.
land, $1 million for the land. And then,
Yeah.
it's stupid money.
Yeah. And then the dunes are gone, they're gone.
Dunes are gone, and all the little critters that live there and depend on it and need it and
are gone.
And I don't think that's, and I don't know, I'm not educated enough on this situation, but doing this pod has definitely inspired me to want to learn more. I don't think that conservationists or activists are saying don't ever build a house or a condo on a beach.
No.
I think they're just asking for, obviously, probably more state and federal lands so these animals can have some natural habitat, which humans can enjoy too through mechanisms such as just hiking or potentially camping, doing lower key stuff on there. So making it more for everybody than for just like the 5 people that visit their, like coming from Southwest Michigan.
Yeah. Snowbirds.
When I grew up, everybody, well, no, in my little beach town where I grew up, people could build homes near or on the beach. But now it's basically only the very, very, very wealthy people have bought out all the homes. They knock them down. They build McMansions. And Chris, they come there like seriously twice a year, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the local people, we have to all live inland and go to the public beach and all cram onto the few public beaches that we have in my town, which is still a gorgeous town. Don't get me wrong. I highly recommend going check out South Haven, Michigan. It rocks. But
in the summer.
In the summer. And the fall's pretty too. But in the summertime it's great. But yeah, so it's just interesting. I mean, a lot of these houses and tourists and things like that, it does, at least in my hometown, they come once or twice a year and they're not really supporting the local economy, paying taxes to help the school systems improve or the roads improve, things like that. And so it's an interesting, but of course, when they come in the summertime, they bring a lot of money in their boats, their yachts, and all this stuff. So it's an interesting debate, but I'm glad that, like, I know in my area, we definitely have a lot of natural reserves for the critters that live around that area. And so the beach grass and other native plant species can grow and do fine. Yeah. So I think it's,
we just need to be good.
It's a balance.
Yeah, we need to be good custodians of the environment. That's all we're doing. Every week we talk about these are things we can do. People that want to buy property in Florida, go to St. John's. That's where I went. We camped on the little inlet there. It was beautiful. Got to walk on the beach. There was tons of families there with their kids camping. So, we got to enjoy the natural landscape at a national park.
Right, a national park. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Or a state park. Maybe it was a state park. All right. And then, Angie, we talked about, quick life cycle. These guys and little gals don't live very long. 15 months in the wild is the longest, really, but the average is 4 to 5 months.
I found 6 in the wild. 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Not very long. Yeah. That's it. That's their life. That's their lifespan, but it's normal for them.
As a pet,
they're nocturnal.
In a lab or potentially as a pet, they can live up to 2 years.
Yeah, up to 2 years. Yeah, so they're nocturnal, so good smelling, good hearing, to avoid predators, things like that.
And I was reading about mice in general, just because there's not a ton of information on the Perdido Key Beach Mouse. But in general, mice, of course, use their whiskers to sense changes in temperature and help feel the surfaces they're walking along. But they also do some kind of superhero stuff, which I can't wait to share with Xander.
Yeah.
They have basically supersonic hearing.
Yeah.
So a mouse's hearing is superb compared to ours. And research has shown that mice can hear ultrasound up to 90 kilohertz.
Wow.
And so, we can hear them squeak, but that's at the lower sounds. And they can also jump really high too. So if you're scared of one, standing on a chair really isn't going to.
It's the stupidest thing on earth. Why are we scared of a little mouse? They're so scared of us.
I love them.
Yeah.
And they also are great climbers. So they're kind of like little superheroes.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is
funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Now I saw the range. It's, and I think looking up some of yours too, the average range is like half to a little bit over an acre, which I just said is like half or a full football field or pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever you live in the world, if it's American football or soccer football, it's about the full size of that. That's their whole range.
Right.
Right. Now the males range a little bit farther than the females. Here you go. Male's a buck, female's a doe, baby's a pinky. And that groups can be called a nest, or did you find this one?
No.
This one's really cute. I love these. I love how they call these groups. It's called a mischief.
Oh, well, that
isn't that perfect?
Yeah, that is perfect. I like a pinky though. I want to start calling my baby.
Yeah.
Zach's not a baby. My girlfriend's is like, you have to stop calling him a baby. He's almost 2 years old, but he's like my baby.
I know.
I'm gonna start calling my.
Oh, my 7-year-old's still my baby.
I know. He's gonna be I'm gonna start calling my little pinky.
There you go. Now, the thing about these mice, raptors eat them, owls, coyotes, wolves, bobcats, snakes, fox, weasels,
but that's
skunks.
part of their ecological niche, though, right? So you take them away, and a lot of the animals higher up on the food chain are going to be hurting. Yeah,
except feral cats, and we'll get to that in conservation. Like feral cats I love cats. I love my cats. They're just death to wildlife. They're horrible to wildlife.
They are.
And one of the things, Angie, you said, the granivores, herbivores, the Key Largo cotton mouse is more of an omnivore. They'll eat other mollusks, fungus, either dead animals, that they may munch on. They're just very opportunistic, which makes them, again, super successful.
Well, and see, crazy. Yeah. And so my guys, the Perdido Key Beach Mouse, they like, seeds of the sea oat or the blue stem, which are types of dune grass. Once in a while, they will eat insects, but unlike other rodents, they shun people and they do not want to be near trash, or they don't eat trash. They're not trashy. They're snooty, snooty beach mice. But in general, Chris, I thought it was really interesting. I mean, it makes sense because they're so small, and animals with smaller metabolisms need to eat more per day, or eat more frequently per day. But in general, a mouse eats about 15 to 20 times a day. And so therefore, they'll usually build their home close to food sources, and will travel up to 8 meters from their burrows to find food. But they do visit their food stations multiple times, of course, in an evening because they're nocturnal or at nighttime. So I mean, I wish I had their metabolisms and could eat 15 to 20 times a day. That's for sure.
No kidding.
And then the only, and since we are in nutrition, just to, one of the little things we talked about earlier in the podcast, should I give the spoiler now about which body part?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Is it their tail? That's what I kind of thought.
Well, close. I think the other end. I'm in nutrition, so.
Teeth?
Yeah, very good. Yes.
Their teeth. Oh, yeah. Duh. Yeah, squirrels.
Yeah,
squirrels' teeth.
Mice, just like a lot of the other rodents we've covered, they have a set of incisors teeth that never stop growing. And their teeth grow at a rate of 0.03 millimeters a day.
That's crazy.
Pretty interesting. So that's why they chew on things. Obviously, if they're in your house, sometimes cables,
yes,
wood, whatever.
That's what they know.
In order to dull their teeth down.
Yeah. So one of the behaviors, I know there wasn't a lot on there. The one thing I found is they do torpor. And instead
tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I know some mice in the northern latitudes where it's colder, they'll actually kind of like hibernate. This one is for these mice during the hot summer months. They go into it's a hibernating state, so their body temperature drops, heart metabolic rate drops, and it's almost like hibernation for a day or two or a few days. Then they'll come out and eat a little bit and then go back and kind of sleep. So when resources are low.
Summertime siestas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think I've been in torpor these past couple weeks here in Florida.
Yeah, I'm still in torpor. It's cold. I'm torpor in the winter, man.
Well, and honestly, Chris, not a ton is known about the life history and ecology of the southeastern beach mouse. But a lot of times they can take data and inferences from other studies. And they do know the Perdido Key Beach Mouse. Of course, it's nocturnal. And mice in general build very complex burrows. They have long instances and they'll have escape routes. The other thing too that people probably don't think about when they think of mice, because you don't want them in your house and you think they're dirty or you think they're diseases, but that's not entirely true. Mice are actually very clean, and especially the beach mouse, they're tiny little rodents that also often have separate areas for storing food, sleeping, sometimes even going to the bathroom. So the technical words are tunnel, chamber, and escape tunnel. And and
like
so
naked mole rats. Yeah.
my beach mouse will usually burrow entrances into the sloping side of a dune at the base of a shrub or a clump of grass. And sometimes the beach mouse can have as many as 20 burrows within its home range. And they'll also sometimes use, which I think is cool, they'll use old burrows that were constructed by ghost crabs. So they'll do a little home recycling. And then it's also been reported that they're more active under stormy conditions or moonless nights. So they like it dark, and they're less active when the moon's out. So and that's the thing too, when you start thinking about, and when we get to when we get to sea turtles, we'll touch more on this, but all the artificial lights on beaches.
Yes.
So, and even more interesting, the Perdido Key Beach Mouse actually mates for life, which is pretty unique for rodents. So that's pretty cool. And they establish family groups and territories and a lot complex social structures that, to be honest, is really hard to study in mice in general, but of course, even more so in beach grass or dune. These mice that live in dunes because, well, they're underground all the time.
Well, and you think about, I mean, I know somebody out there is studying mice behavior, not in a lab, but in like the wild. It's just, there's so many of them, right? So when we're looking for specific information on these specific mice, it's just not a lot there.
Yeah, and for me, I think there's like obviously lots of species and subspecies of mice, but there's very few Perdido Key Beach Mouse. So yeah, that's hard to study, but we definitely do know in general with rodents, of course, they communicate with each other, which is in a variety of ways. They use their mouth, their noses, their ears, their bodies. And a lot of their vocal communication is actually, once again, it's outside of the human range. It's in that ultrasonic region. But of course, we can hear their squeaks. Everybody knows what a mice squeak or squeal can sound like because we can hear the lower range. But what's interesting, Chris, I came across this study, but the rabbit hole that I went in this week, Chris, well, actually went in a few of them, but the one that was the most fun is about rodent communication or mice communication, more or less. So not the Perdido Key Beach Mouse, but mice in general surprisingly speak a sophisticated language of love. So they communicate to each other and they use this ultrasound communication, which we can't hear, to one another. And it's been found that they serenade each other with love songs. So check this out. Researchers out of Duke University, a team of neuroscientists, basically measured and were able to interpret mice communicating to each other. And they found that male mice sing different songs depending on where the females are. I think that's true, right? Like, I know, John, I know when
do you have different game for different types of
women? Like when I'm out of town, John will sing all by myself.
Oh God.
Just kidding.
You actually sing really well.
Just kidding.
But I can't imagine John singing that.
No, but he actually does a really funny interpretation of a song, that song. But so he might sing that when I'm gone. And then, when I'm here, it's like, YMCA or I don't know, some kind of fun party song or something. That's probably not the best one I'm doing off the top of my head. So feel free to cut that out. Okay. But seriously, what these researchers found is that the complexity of their serenades depend on whether or not the females are in direct line of sight. So males that could see the females, sang straightforward love ballads. Okay. So I don't have an example, darn it. I'm not that witty tonight. While females that were exposed to just the female urine, so can't see her, but they could smell her. So it suggested that she might be around, maybe playing hard to get, emitted much more complicated vocalizations. And if you stick with me, I have a clip of these ultrasonic love songs.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, it's crazy, you know, how these different vocalizations that we get to listen to. It's pretty fun.
And I just think too, it goes to show we're just still learning so much about these guys and their communication and their complex social structures. So, and obviously they're good singers and they have a different reason to sing their songs. So
Right.
yeah, it'd be a darn shame if the Perdido Key Beach Mouse went extinct before we could learn its song.
You know, the conservation status of both these species, they're both subspecies. They're both endangered, recognized by the Fish and Wildlife Service of the United States. The greater species, the cotton mouse and the oldfield mouse, they're least concern IUCN, but these subspecies are, and there are other subspecies that are already extinct.
Correct. We don't have time to touch on all of them today. And future pods, I hope we'll spend more time because like you said, rodents are about 40% of our mammals, so they deserve some more attention. But yeah, there's a lot of them. Some are doing just okay, but yes, there are a lot of them that are also endangered or threatened. Like I said, if not like Chris said,
feral
if not
cats.
Extinct.
Though I know for the Key Largo Cotton Mouse, the number one threat is feral cats. They're just horrific. That's why, you know, we don't want feral cats out there. They're really doing a hard thing in nature. Still here in New Zealand, that's a big thing. Feral dogs and cats killing kiwis. Pollution. Burmese pythons now in the Keys. That is another thing.
Yeah, we don't have that problem in the Panhandle yet, thank goodness.
So who should we give a shout out to this week?
Well, I just want to give a quick shout out to 3 institutions, zoological institutions in Florida that are doing amazing work with the help from state and federal agencies to help protect this Perdido Key Beach Mouse. And so it's the Brevard Zoo, which is located in central eastern Florida, kind of near the... You've been, right?
Awesome. Mm-hmm. I just went last year. I just on a whim. We were in Cocoa Beach, like I said, last Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was going to say it's
in
near
November.
It's near your favorite Cocoa Beach, so you can kind of.
And we drove down to it. It's a beautiful zoo. If you've not been to the Brevard Zoo, go please. It is a beautiful zoo.
Awesome. And then the other one is the West Palm Beach Zoo, which I've been to, and it's a charming zoo and a gorgeous community. I think the West Palm Beach. Not that I've been to every beach in Florida, but it's definitely one of my top beaches that I've ever been to because it's literally like the Caribbean. The water is so beautiful. See, you know, you can be all the way up to your neck and see down to your feet. It's stunning, and the zoo is awesome there. And once again, West Palm Beach does a nice job working in collaboration with these other zoos to help protect the Perdido Key Beach Mouse. And then lastly, the third zoo that works with these guys is, of course, the Santa Fe College Teaching Zoo.
That place?
Yeah, that place.
Hasn't that director a little crazy? His wife's driving him a little crazy.
Only when I'm gone and he sings all by myself.
One of my favorite places on earth. I love that teaching zoo.
And guys, these zoos, like I said, they're working with state and federal agencies, not with a lot of money or a lot of resources, but they're putting so much time and energy and passion and love and to develop breeding programs of these Perdido Key Beach mice to help maintain a healthy and genetically diverse population living under human care. And many of these offspring have been released in Perdido Key to help the wild stock rebound from hurricanes. And so today I want to give a big shout out.
That's a great story.
Yeah, and I want to give a big shout out to, and I'll maybe try to get an interview sometime with Kathy Russell. She's one of the main curators at the Santa Fe College Teaching Zoo that goes out once, if not twice a year, working, you know, all hours of the day and night, out in the field, out on Perdido Key, helping count, trap, do all these things with these mice and making recommendations for breeding. I mean, she's just, and this is all volunteer. I mean, she works at the zoo. We all know zoo people don't get paid very much. And she's just very passionate about these beach mice. And she's been at the zoo for, like probably 20-ish plus years. And her, you know, she's individually one of the reasons that the animal, that their numbers have gone up from 40 to
it's
like
she's
500.
an eco warrior. I mean,
she is.
I think of Dr. Cottrell there in Florida in Gainesville.
She is a wildlife
all these
hero.
people,
they all. I mean, they all are at all of these zoos, and of course, there's people at Brevard Zoo and West Palm Zoo. I don't know them by name. If somebody does, let me know, because they're doing really cool programs with the Perdido Key Beach Mouse, and they're on exhibit there. Unfortunately, you can hardly ever see them because you go to the zoo during the day and they're all sleeping.
Yeah, they're not nocturnal.
But their exhibits are beautiful because they use the white sand beat. They use all natural enclosures and habitats to mimic the beach and the beach grass, and so they're beautiful, beautiful exhibits. But you're lucky if you ever see.
Yeah.
But that's how it should be.
So
that's how it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah. And I was just thinking, shout out to Alicia. I know you've been talking to her. When you go to Chicago,
I know she's like
you're gonna go to Cincinnati.
She's my new buddy.
You're gonna have Christina and you are gonna have beers with Fiona, and then you're gonna go hang out with Alicia at Brookfield.
I can't wait.
And then all your friends at Lincoln Park.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
And hopefully
spoiled.
throughout this podcast we'll make more friends that I can visit, and just do that for like every summer. Just go visit all my podcast friends and if you're in New Zealand or Australia, hit me up, please. I want to come visit. I know we could do like some live interviews. That would be awesome, on the show. That'd be awesome. I would love to take this show on the road. That'd be awesome.
So, conservation tip this week. Here's one, and I'm going to be building on this: how to be a better camper, eco-friendly. But buy reusable water bottles. I don't think we've said that yet. Do not buy a plastic water bottle. My goodness, do not. Just go buy a good reusable water bottle. I have I'm not kidding you, Angie, there's probably 5 in my fridge right now. And we have about 10 in the house. Yeah, because the 2 kids, I just hand out water bottles when they're thirsty and refill them and stick them back in the fridge. They are so much better for the environment, and do not buy plastic water botters, please, at all, ever. And
my biggest shout out is go, especially this time of year in the U.S. It's their summertime. Go enjoy your beaches. Go camping. Just leave only footprints behind.
Yes, all in, all out. Yep. Now, building up to Thursday's interview with Theo, the $1 Million Mouse Project. So this is a story that's the complete opposite of the mice we were talking about today. And that is invasive mice and how they can be very harmful to the environment. So Theo went, and just give you kind of a preview on the interview, he went on a monitoring trip down to the Antipodes, which is a subantarctic island about 800 kilometers off the coast of New Zealand. Very few people have ever set foot on this. The trip was crazy. I'll get pictures up of where he was. But in the 1800s, either sealers or a whaleboat or a shipwreck, a bunch of mice got on the island. That mice population grew up to about 200,000.
Wow.
And so with the whole $1 Million Mouse, it's crazy. So the whole thing with the $1 Million Mouse program is to eradicate the mice, because the mice have been horrific to native wildlife, native birds specifically. And what Theo was looking at too was native insects. So it was a crazy trip. It's a great story. It's one of the things we're combating here in New Zealand is the only mammals we had here were bats. And so mice have been doing really wonderful. A lot of these smaller predators, rodents, stuff like that. So anyways, stay tuned for that. But, keep sharing this podcast with your friends. I see people doing it on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you. We have some great suggestions for animals. I know Angie's had a couple friends speak up, but if you do, send us a link. We've had some great suggestions. We're putting them on the radar. So thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Listen, learn, share. Join the movement at allcreaturespod.com.